Hello, I'm fishing, just cast out, and while I'm waiting for that first bite, I'm going to tell you a story. A fishing memory came back to me from about 47 years ago. I was at school, Sir Gilbert Claughton Grammar School in Dudley. I lived in Sedgley. It was a Saturday morning, remember it well, been to play football. And on the way back at lunchtime, I popped into the shop, the shooting gun shop and fishing tackle shop. Fenwick's, if my memory served me well, Peter Fenwick's. And that was by Top Church in Dudley. So I popped in, got my maggots, half a pint of maggots, got back home, had a change and got ready to go fishing, had something to eat. And I fished a pool, a pond that was a couple of miles or so from where I live, and I used to walk down there. And it was a very wet and windy day, and that's what triggered the memory, because that's what today is like. And before I came out, got the car loaded, my wife said, "You're not going fishing in this weather?" And then she answered the question herself. She said, "You go anyway." And I remember that day saying to my friends from school as we walked up to Dudley itself from school, "What are you doing this afternoon?" "I'm going fishing." "You're not going fishing in weather like this, are you?" Yes, nothing's changed in all those years. And I remember the pond very clearly, as if I was there now, all those years ago. I set up, I got a float on, and I fished a particular section that was probably less exposed to the elements than the other. However, having said that, it was still got waves on it like that as the wind blew across the pond, open and exposed. And the conditions were very difficult, of course, but I was out there, my bait was in the water, it meant I had a chance. And I can remember that session so clearly, even to this day. I was watching the float like I'm watching my rod tip now, no action. And because of the waves, the float would be submerged by a wave, and then it would be exposed again. Then the next one would come over just seconds later, and that pattern continued. On this one occasion, the float was submerged, the wave passed, and it still stayed submerged. I knew that I had a fish on, and I struck into it, and it was my favourite fish, a tiny perch, probably about that big, just a couple of ounces, and that was all I caught that day. But that was a powerful lesson, not only as an angler. As long as your bait's in the water, you've got a chance. The reverse is, if your bait isn't in the water, then you've got no chance. But above all, it's the challenge, isn't it? You're out there in the great outdoors, exposed to the elements. I had no umbrella back at that particular time. It was so windy anyway, it would have just blown away. At least I'm fortunate now where I am that I can at least pop the brolly in and I've got some tree cover around me. But then I was just fishing out there in the elements, and I caught that one small, tiny perch. But the important thing is, I went. I didn't allow the conditions, the elements to come against me, to influence me. I went fishing and I caught 47 years ago. And I often think of that story. I often think of the principles, the life principles that are contained within that particular story. While other anglers, much older than me, certainly were tucked up in the house in front of a fire, maybe watching television or whatever they were doing because of the conditions. Even as a youngster, a child, I went anyway and I caught. Great lessons there, not just for us as anglers, but also life lessons as well. And I'm hoping and believing that I'll also catch something today. You need to have that confidence and expectancy when you go fishing, like I did when I was a young boy and I've continued that right through to adulthood. Confidence in itself won't put fish on the bank, but without it, you will most definitely struggle.